Hello and welcome back to Building on a Budget Models. I'm Thomas and this is the first part of the Jaguar E Type 1961 in 1/24th scale by Revell. I've just hit 900 subscribers, so a massive thank you to everyone who has subscribed, watched and has supported me these past 8.5 months. Firstly, all the parts were primed in Tamiya light grey primer. First things to put together were the engine. These bits go together really nicely. The engine block itself is done in gloss black. And then the kind of gearbox section is done in a bit of aluminium and a bit of iron. This oil pan underneath is also aluminium. For some reason they want this end part to be done in semi-gloss black. Don't quite know why, because it gets covered up by another part later anyway. I tried to show myself spraying some of the parts in British Racing Green, that's TS43 by Tamiya, but I didn't make sure that I was standing in front of the camera. Once the TS43 had dried, I then added some anthracite to protect some of the undercarriage. The top of the engine is from the chrome sprue, but the centre of it needs to be in gold, as you can see here. I also drilled out the 6 points for the kind of spark leads. This is a straight 6 engine. All goes together really nicely so far, as you'd expect from a new tool. Here I'm using Tamiya cable. Works really well for this kind of job. I dabbed a little bit of super glue onto the end of it so that when I pushed it into the drilled holes it would stay there. I think I used a 0.6mm drill bit. When I was happy with all of these, I made sure that the wires all went to the distribution cap and then glued those in place with super glue. The exhaust downpipes here were supposed to be in anthracite, but I quite like the look of them in chrome, so I did them in silver instead. I then used some of the decals on the engine. There is a very small Jaguar logo where the I think it's probably the oil filler cap. And then there are some extra decals around some of the smaller parts. I then painted the rear axle. Interestingly, the circular parts in the middle of this are the rear disc brakes. This was Hull Red by Vallejo, and I did most of the rest in semi-gloss black, bit of silver and gold for the brake calipers. This fit in really nicely. Some of the holes go through to the underside of the car, so you can add a bit of glue that way. And the exhaust pipes came in 2 small parts, just sanding away some of the burrs. This looks a little strange how they go together here, but believe me, it does work when you fit it to the bottom of the car. I then painted all of that in iron. The shock absorbers for the rear were done in silver, and then I did the springs or coils in a bit of gloss red. I found though that the holes were too small for them, so I used a larger drill bit. I think this is about 1mm, and then they went in really nicely. Don't know whether this was because of paint or because there was an error, but you might have this problem too. Once I drilled those holes, they went in much nicer, and I just added a little bit of Tamiya extra thin cement through the back. Now this part of the rear suspension was done in semi-gloss black, and then it asks you to just add a little bit of silver to the edge. These bits go together no problem. The drive shaft goes into the rear axle, and then you need to position the engine not only to meet up with the pins at the front, but also the hole in the gearbox needs to go into the drive shaft. Found this a little bit awkward, but using the tweezers and a little bit of jiggery pokery, got it in there in the end. The front disc brakes were done in iron, and then I used some gold leaf for the brake calipers. Later I added a little bit of Tamiya panel line accent just to add a little bit of depth and shading and a bit of wear. The exhausts here should meet up with the downpipe from the engine first, and then the rest of it can slot into pinholes that go along the underside of the car. I then moved on to the steering mechanism at the front. Some of these pins and holes I find a little stiff and awkward to put together, which is odd because this is a new tool. It could be the primer that I've added, maybe it's making them not move quite so easily, not sure. Let me know in the comments if you've had difficulty putting together some of the parts in this kit. Then I think this is the firewall. It's done in green as well, with just a few accents in silver. And then there's this sort of frame which goes around the engine. It's made up of 3 different parts. Most of it's in green, a little bit of black and a little bit of aluminium. There are some pins for some of the kind of stalks from this to go into. Just look all around, because if you get one in the wrong place, it might stop something else being added later. Just making sure the wheels, the wheel hubs are on properly. The shock absorbers go in quite nicely actually, but I would really recommend tweezers for this. Also, the end of the tweezers can be used to sort of squeeze the ends gently so that they come together. Did these in silver with a little bit of hull red again. I think these are Coney, and there's a little decal that went on here. Colour of the camera went all weird when I was doing this, so I apologise for that. These are the carburettors, which were partly done in silver, partly aluminium and partly iron, with a little gold dab on the top of each of these. There were several more parts of the engine that went together with a bit of gloss black. Now this steering system here, there are 2 different versions of this part, whether you're choosing to do a left-hand drive or right-hand drive car. I'm doing a right-hand drive car, so I painted this and then put it into place. Now this little canister here needs to be done in metallic blue, so I painted it silver and then used some blue Sharpie to add the kind of tint to it. And it changes side depending on whether you're doing right hand or left hand drive. The battery is done in semi-gloss black and then added just a little bit of red and a little bit of iron for the kind of positive and negative clips. Now there's two options for decals on the top of it and one for the side. I decided to add the small yellow circles in the middle using paint and then use some of the label decals for the top and the one for the side which says Lucas. The fan, which is really nicely moulded, was painted before assembly, obviously. It does still spin, not that you'll see that at all when it goes in. Now there are lots of smaller parts which go into the engine. Some of these have got decals, like these ones here. This kind of silver vent here has a tendency to curl up, so I found the decal solution Microsol very useful here. The radiator went into the front, the kind of bar on the end of the fan went into the engine itself. Then there are some more parts to go in other places. There's decal on this little here with these canisters. If you've got to this part of the video, tell me in the comments who your favourite band or artist from the 1960s were. Mine were probably the Beatles, I think closely followed by the Kinks and the Who. This engine bay is incredibly detailed and there are many parts. I would say between a third and a half of the 142 parts that come in this kit are probably from this engine bay alone. There is an incredibly small decal that goes onto one of the pipes here at the front, which I'll show you in a second. It's white, which means that it's very hard to see on the decal paper, so look out for that. Here it is here on this pipe here. I then very gently, carefully added some black panel line accent to add a little bit of depth, shade and sort of a bit of sort of oil from usage. I'm pretty happy with how this has turned out. Hopefully the engine lid will close onto this now that I've added those wires. But thanks for watching. I hope you'll join me next time. I think the next video is about the interior. Please like, share and subscribe, leave a comment, and I'll see you soon.